Chapter 3, Cells, the Living Units. So this is the introduction. Just as bricks and timbers are the structural units of a house, cells are the structural units of all living things, from one-celled generalists like amoebas to complex multicellular organisms such as humans, dogs, and trees. The human body has 50 to 100 trillion of these tiny building blocks. This chapter focuses on structures and functions shared by all cells. We address specialized cells and their unique functions in later chapters. Three point one, cells are the smallest unit of life. So our learning objectives are to define the cell, name and describe the composition of extracellular materials, and then list the three major regions of a generalized cell and what those functions are. Since the late 1800s, cell research has been exceptionally fruitful and has provided us with three concepts collectively known as cell theory. The cell is the smallest unit of life. When you define the properties of cells, you define the properties of life. All organisms are made of one or more cells. Cells are the structural and functional building blocks of an organism. Different cell types have different functions within an organism, and the activity of an organism depends on the activities of individual cells and of all the cells together. According to the principle of complementarity of structure and function, the activities of cells are dictated by their shapes and by the types and relative numbers of the subcellular structures they contain. Lastly, cells only arise from other cells. Most body cells arise by mitosis, which we will explore later in this chapter. Ova, or eggs, and sperm cells arise by a related process called meiosis, which we describe in chapter 27. We will expand on all of these concepts. Let us begin with the idea that the cell is the smallest living unit. Whatever its form, however it behaves, the cell is the microscopic package that contains all the parts necessary to survive in an ever-changing world. It follows then that loss of homeostasis in cells underlies virtually every disease. The trillions of cells in the human body include over 250 different cell types that vary greatly in shape, size, and function. This is shown in figure 3.1. The disc-shaped red blood cells, branching nerve cells, and cube-like cells of kidney tubules are just a few examples of the shapes cells take. Cells also vary in length, ranging from 2 micrometers in the smallest cells to over a meter in the nerve cells that cause you to wiggle your toes. A cell's shape reflects its function. For example, a flat tile-like epithelial, or the flat tile-like epithelial cells that line the inside of your cheek fit closely together, forming a living barrier that protects underlying tissues from bacterial invasion. Regardless of these differences, all cells have the same basic parts, some common functions. For this reason, we will describe a generalized or composite cell, and that's shown in figure 3.2. A human cell has 3 main parts: the plasma membrane, the cytoplasm, and the nucleus. The plasma membrane, the outer boundary of the cell, which acts as a selectively permeable barrier. The cytoplasm is the intracellular fluid packed full with organelles, small structures that perform specific cell functions. And then lastly, the nucleus, which is an organelle that controls cellular activities. Typically, the nucleus lies near the cell's center. Extracellular materials. Although we tend to think of the body as collections of cells, and it is that, it is impossible to discuss cells and their activities without saying something about extracellular materials. So let's do that before going on to details about the generalized cell. First of all, what are extracellular materials? Extracellular materials are substances contributing to body mass that are found outside the cells. So that's organism level. The major classes of extracellular materials are extracellular fluid, cellular secretions, and extracellular matrix. Extracellular fluid, or ECF, includes interstitial fluid, blood plasma, and cerebrospinal fluid. ECF dissolves and transports substances in the body. Interstitial fluid is the fluid in tissues that bathes all of our cells and has endless major roles to play. Like a rich, nutritious soup, interstitial fluid contains thousands of ingredients, including amino acids, sugars, fatty acids, regulatory substances, and wastes. To remain healthy, each cell must extract from this mix the exact amounts of substances it needs, depending on present conditions. Cellular secretions. These secretions include substances that aid in digestion and some that act as lubricants. The digestion aids include intestinal and gastric fluids, and the lubricants include saliva, mucus, and serous fluids. The last is extracellular matrix. The extracellular matrix is the most abundant extracellular material. Most body cells are in contact with a jelly-like substance composed of proteins and polysaccharides. Secreted by cells, these molecules self-assemble into an organized mesh in the extracellular space, where they serve as kind of a universal cell glue that helps bind body cells together. As described in Chapter 4, the extracellular matrix is particularly abundant in connective tissues. In some cases, so abundant that it, rather than living cells, accounts for the bulk of that tissue type. Depending on the structure to be formed, the extracellular matrix in connective tissue ranges from soft to rock hard. So that is section 3.1.